Greetings and welcome. We are in Senior English A, and we are now working with the Mallory text. You should have your hymnal open to page 184. Definitely have your annotations out. I want to make a couple of quick observations about this cat. First of all, start out with writing down his dates. Now, what makes Mallory so important for us is that he becomes the center place where we go to find out about this guy named King Arthur, and, by extension, the Knights of the Round Table. One of the more important elements of Mallory is his storytelling technique, where he's going to try as best he can to make us feel the events as they unfold. You're reading now not so much poetry as prose, all right? In other words, it's like reading a novel, okay? We're coming, notice, just a few lines from Mort to Arthur. Mort is simply the word death. So in other words, ultimately Mallory's going to tell about how Arthur himself dies. Who kills him? His son. Good. Arthur dies by the son, Mordred, who will kill him on the battlefield. Right? Remember as well, we learn about the love triangle between who? Arthur, Lancelot, and the girl's Guinevere. You got it. She's the Helen figure from our earlier story. You should now be on page 185, and we'll just continue now with our work here, and we'll be reading now with Miss Laird from Mallory. Okay? Again, follow along. Make sure you get good notes.
From Mort d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Mallory. This selection begins after King Arthur has traveled to France at the insistence of his nephew Gawain to besiege his former friend and knight Lancelot for his involvement with Queen Guinevere. However, the king's attempts to punish are half-hearted, and he is soon forced to abandon them altogether when he learns that his nephew Mordred has seized control of England. Arthur leads his forces back to England, and Mordred attacks them upon their landing. Gawain is killed in the fighting, but before he dies, he manages to send word to Lancelot that Arthur is in need of assistance. So upon Trinity Sunday at night, King Arthur dreamed a wonderful dream, and in his dream him seemed that he saw upon a chaflet a chair, and the chair was fast to a wheel. And thereupon sat King Arthur in the richest cloth of gold that might be made. And the king thought there was under him, far from him, an hideous deep black water, and therein was all manner of serpents, and worms, and wild beasts, foul and horrible. And suddenly the king thought that the wheel turned upside down, and he fell among the serpents, and every beast took him by a limb. And then the king cried as he lay in his bed, "Help! Help!" And then knights, squires, and yeomen awaked the king. And then he was so amazed that he wist not where he was. And then so he awaked until it was nigh day. And then he fell on slumbering again, not sleeping nor thoroughly waking. So the king seemed verily that there came Sir Gawain unto him, with a number of fair ladies with him. So when King Arthur saw him, he said, "Welcome, my sister's son. I weened ye had been dead, and now I see thee on live. Much am I beholden unto Almighty Jesu. Ah, fair nephew and my sister's son, what been these ladies that hither be come with you?"
Okay, so in case you guys didn't understand, it starts out with King Arthur having a dream. He is on a platform, and there's a golden throne attached to a wheel. Arthur is sitting in that throne, and not too far from it is a black body of water, a black lake with serpents and snakes and all kinds of horrible things.
Cool.
The wheel turns, and the throne dumps him into it, and then he wakes up screaming. So that was his nightmare. Right now, his nephew has shown up with a bunch of ladies, and he's asking, what's going on? Who are all of these women with you? So that's where we are at the top of 186.
"Sir," said Sir Gawain, "all these be ladies for whom I have foughten for when I was man living, and all these are those that I did battle for in righteous quarrels, And God hath given them that grace at their great prayer, because I did battle for them for their right, that they should bring me hither unto you. Thus much hath given me leave God, for to warn you of your death. For and ye fight as to mourn with Sir Mordred, as ye both have assigned, doubt ye not ye must be slain, and the most party of your people on both parties. And for the great grace and goodness that Almighty Jesu hath unto you, and for pity of you and many more other good men there shall be slain. God hath sent me to you of his special grace, to give you warning, that in no wise ye do battle as to mourn, but that ye take a treaty for a month from today. And proffer you largely you, so that to morn ye put in a delay. For within a month shall come Sir Launcelot with all his noble knights, and rescue you worshipfully, and slay Sir Mordred and all that ever will hold with him.
So we realize that Arthur is still dreaming, and because we've already been told that his nephew is dead, correct? And all of the ladies are women he defended in his lifetime, women whose honor he would go out and do battle for. And he comes with a warning to Arthur, telling him, don't go do battle tomorrow because you will die. If you can wait a month, Lancelot will be here to help you. So, he's come with a warning in the dream.
Then Sir Gawain and all the ladies vanished. And anon the king called upon his knights, squires, and yeomen, and charged them whitely to fetch his noble lords and wise bishops unto him. And when they were come, the king told them of his vision, that Sir Gawain had told him and warned him that, and he thought charged them whitely he should be slain. Then the king commanded Sir Lucan the butler, and his brother Sir Bedivere the bold, with 2 bishops with them, and charged them in any wise to take a treaty for a month from today with Sir Mordred. And spare not, proffer him lands and goods as much as ye think reasonable. So then they departed, and came to Sir Mordred, where he had a grim host of 100,000, and there they entreated Sir Mordred long time. And at the last Sir Mordred was agreed for to have Cornwall and Kent by King Arthur's days, and after that all England after the days of King Arthur. Then were they condescended that King Arthur and Sir Mordred should meet betwixt both their hosts, and each of them should bring 14 persons. And so they came with this word unto Arthur. Then said he, I am glad that this is done. And so he went into the field. And when King Arthur should depart, he warned all his host that, and they see any sword drawn, look ye come on fiercely, and slay that traitor Sir Mordred, for I in no wise trust him. In like wise Sir Mordred warned his host that, and ye see any manner of sword drawn, look that ye come on fiercely, and so slay all that ever before you standeth. For in no wise I will not trust for this treaty. And in the same wise said Sir Mordred unto his host, for I know well my father will be avenged upon me.
So King Arthur sends out some of his men to go to Mordred and say, we need to make a treaty, because he's taking this warning, correct? And they decide each side is going to take 14 men, and they're going to go meet on the battlefield and make a treaty. But both commanders, Arthur and Mordred, both tell their men, if you see any sword being pulled, go for it, because I don't trust him. So neither one of them trusts him. They're going to try and do a treaty, but if somebody on either side pulls their sword or even looks like they're going to do something, they've been instructed to go into battle. We are at the top of 187.
And so they met as their appointment was, and were agreed and accorded thoroughly. And wine was fetched, and they drank together. Right so came an adder out of a little heath bush, and it stung a knight in the foot, And so when the knight felt him so stung, he looked down and saw the adder. And anon he drew his sword to slay the adder, and thought none other harm. And when the host on both parties saw that sword drawn, then they blew beams, trumpets, horns, and shouted grimly. And so both hosts dressed them together. And King Arthur took his horse and said, "Alas, this unhappy day!" and so rode to his party, and Sir Mordred in likewise.
So of course everything's going well. They're whining together, eating together. They're about to make the treaty when one of the knights gets stung in the foot by something and pulls his sword out, and off they go. And why did Arthur say, "Oh, unhappy day"?
He's gonna die.
Because he knows he's gonna die. There's nothing he can do.
And never since was there never seen a more dolefuller battle in no Christian land. For there was but rushing and riding, lunging and striking, and many a grim word was there spoken of either to other, and many a deadly stroke. But ever King Arthur rode throughout the battle of Sir Mordred many times, and did full nobly, as a noble king should do, and at all times he fainted never. And Sir Mordred did his devoir that day, and put himself in great peril. And thus they fought all the long day, and never stinted till the noble knights were laid to the cold earth. And ever they fought still till it was near night, and by then was there 100,000 laid dead upon the down. Then was King Arthur wood wroth out of measure, when he saw his people so slain from him. And so he looked about him, and could see no more of all his host. And good knights left no more on live, but 2 knights. The to one was Sir Lucan the butler, and the other his brother Sir Bedivere. And yet they were full sore wounded.
So they fight all day until pretty much everybody's dead except for Mordred, Arthur, and 2 of Arthur's men, Bedivere and Lucan. And at this point, Arthur's pretty mad because all of his men have been killed, right? So this is where we are. They've been fighting all day, and it is the evening. We are at the bottom of 187.
Jesu mercy, said the king. Where are all my noble knights become? Alas, that ever I should see this doleful day. For now, said King Arthur, I am come to mine end. But would to God, said he, that I wist now where were that traitor Sir Mordred that has caused all this mischief. Then King Arthur looked about, and was where stood Sir Mordred leaning upon his sword among a great heap of dead men. Now give me my spear, said King Arthur unto Sir Lucan, for yonder I have espied the traitor that all this woe hath wrought. Sir, let him be, said Sir Lucan, for he is unhappy. And if ye pass this unhappy day, ye shall be right well revenged upon him. And, good Lord, remember ye of your night's dream, and what the spirit of Sir Gawain told you tonight. And yet God of his great goodness hath preserved you hitherto. And for God's sake, my lord, leave off by this, for blessed be God, ye have won the field. For yet we been here 3 on live, and with Sir Mordred is not 1 on live. And therefore, if ye leave off now, this wicked day of destiny is past.
So Arthur's standing among all of the dead men, and he says, well, where's Mordred? I want to be rid of him for killing everybody and making this happen all in the first place. And they see Mordred standing amidst all of the dead men, and Arthur says, give me my spear, I'm going to go finish this once and for all. His knight Lucan says, why not quit while the quitting, well, it's good. You're still alive, we're still alive, Mordred doesn't have any men alive. Let's just be done with it, right? You've been told that you were going to die. You can probably avoid it if you do not go and confront him right now. But Arthur is of honor, so he is going to pursue it, correct? We are in the middle of 189.
Now tide me death, tide me life, said the king. Now I see him yonder alone, he shall never escape mine hands, for at a better avail shall I never have him. God speed you well, said Sir Bedivere. Then the king got his spear in both his hands, and ran toward Sir Mordred, crying and saying, Traitor, now is thy death day come! And when Sir Mordred saw King Arthur, he ran unto him, with his sword drawn in his hand. And there King Arthur smote Sir Mordred under the shield, with a thrust of his spear, throughout the body more than a fathom. And when Sir Mordred felt that he had his death's wound, he thrust himself with the might that he had up to the burr of King Arthur's spear. And right so he smote his father King Arthur with his sword holden in both his hands upon the side of the head, that the sword pierced the helmet and the casing of the brain. And therewith Sir Mordred dashed down stark dead to the earth. And noble King Arthur fell in a swoon to the earth, and there he swooned oftentimes, and Sir Lucan and Sir Bedivere ofttimes heaved him up. And so, weakly betwixt them, they led him to a little chapel not far from the seaside. And when the king was there, him thought him reasonably eased. Then heard they people cry in the field. Now go thou, Sir Lucan, said the king, and do me to wit what betokens that noise in the field.
Okay, so at this point, they both charged each other in battle and essentially killed each other. Mordred had stabbed Arthur fatally, wounded him fatally with his sword, and Arthur has killed Mordred with his spear. But Arthur's still just barely alive. And he says that they hear something in the field, and he wants his men to go find out what it is. We're at the top of 190.
And so they met as their appointment was, and were agreed and accorded thoroughly. So Sir Lucan departed, for he was grievously wounded in many places. And so as he walked, he saw and hearkened by the moonlight how that pillagers and robbers were come into the field to pill and to rob many a full noble knight of brooches and bracelets, and of many a good ring and many a rich jewel. And who that were not dead all out, there they slew them for their harness and their riches. When Sir Lucan understood this work, he came to the king as soon as he might, and told him all what he had heard and seen. Therefore, by my rede, said Sir Lucan, it is best that we bring you to some town. I would it were so, said the king, but I may not stand, my head works so. Ah, Sir Lancelot, said King Arthur, this day have I sore missed thee, and alas that ever I was against thee, for now I have my death, whereof Sir Gawain me warned in my dream.
So what was the sound that they heard out on the battlefield?
Robbers.
Robbers going around and taking all of the gold and what they could find from the wounded and the dead. And if they were still alive, what were the robbers doing, Casey?
Killing them. What did they do, Casey?
What would they do?
They stole, like, stuff off the dead bodies.
Right, and if the men were still alive, what did they do to them?
Did they kill them?
They killed them. So their recommendation to the king is that they should take him to some town where he'll be safe. And he says, it's kind of pointless, you know, I know that I'm gonna die if only I listened to the dream, if only Lancelot were here to have helped me, maybe this wouldn't have happened. So we're at the top of 191.
Then Sir Lucan took up the king the one party, and Sir Bedivere the other party, and in the lifting up the king swooned, and in the lifting Sir Lucan fell in a swoon, that part of his guts fell out of his body, and therewith the noble knight's heart burst. And when the king awoke, he beheld Sir Lucan how he lay foaming at the mouth, and part of his guts lay at his feet. Alas, said the king, this is to me a full heavy sight, to see this noble duke so die for my sake, for he would have helped me that had more need of help than I. Alas, that he would not complain him, for his heart was so set to help me. Now, Jesu, have mercy upon his soul. Then Sir Bedivere wept for the death of his brother. Now leave this mourning and weeping, gentle knight, said the king, for all this will not avail me. For wit thou well, and might I live myself, the death of Sir Lucan would grieve me evermore. But my time passeth on fast, said the king. Therefore, said King Arthur unto Sir Bedivere, take thou here Excalibur, my good sword, and go with it to yonder water's side. And when thou comest there, I charge thee, throw my sword in that water, and come again, and tell me what thou sawest there.
So, Sir Lucan, who's been trying to help the king, what happens to him?
Dies.
Yeah, he was wounded more than he let on to Arthur, and essentially he'd been stabbed and cut so much that it said his what happened? His
fell out.
So all that's left is his brother Sir Bedivere, and King Arthur tells him to do what? He says, stop crying, I know I'm really sad about your brother's death as well, but I have one thing I need you to focus, I need you to do this for me. What does he tell him he needs to do?
Throw a sword in the water.
Take the sword and go throw it in the water, and then come back and tell me what you saw. Patrick?
My lord, said Sir Bedivere, your commandment shall be done, and I shall lightly bring you word again. So Sir Bedivere departed, and by the way he beheld that noble sword, that the pommel and the haft was all precious stones. And then he said to himself, if I throw this rich sword in the water, thereof shall never come good, but harm and loss. And then Sir Bedivere hid Excalibur under a tree. And so, as soon as he might, he came again unto the king, and said he had been at the water, and had thrown the sword into the water. What saw thou there? Said the king. Sir, he said, I saw nothing but waves and winds. That is untruly said of thee, said the king. And therefore go thou lightly again, and do my commandment. As thou art to me loved and dear, spare not, but throw it in. Then Sir Bedivere returned again, and took the sword in his hand. And yet him thought sin and shame to throw away that noble sword. And so eft he hid the sword, and returned again, and told the king that he had been at the water, and done his commandment.
So what is Bedivere doing?
He's just hiding it.
He keeps hiding the sword, because he thinks this is the great Excalibur. I can't just go throw it in the water. I mean, it represents something. It represents
But like, get on the side of the
So
water.
he keeps hiding it, and he keeps coming back and telling Arthur, I just saw the waves, I didn't see anything. Why do you think, from what you guys learned ahead of time, why do you think Arthur knows he's lying?
Because he knows something greater should happen.
He knows something fantastic is supposed to happen. So let's continue on 192.
What sawest thou there? Said the
I don't
king.
know that.
Sir, he said, I saw nothing but waters wap and waves wan. Oh, traitor unto me and untrue, said King Arthur, now hast thou betrayed me twice. Who would have weened that thou that hast been to me so loved and dear, and thou art named a noble knight, and would betray me for the riches of this sword? But now go again lightly, for thy long tarrying putteth me in great jeopardy of my life, for I have taken cold. And but if thou do now as I bid thee, if ever I may see thee, I shall slay thee mine own hands, for thou wouldest for my rich sword see me dead. Then Sir Bedivere departed, and went to the sword, and lightly took it up. And so he went to the water's side, and there he bound the girdle about the hilts, and threw the sword as far into the water as he might. And there came an arm, and then hand above the water, and took it and clutched it, and shook it thrice, and brandished, and then vanished away the hand with the sword into the water. So Sir Bedivere came again to the king, and told him what he saw. Alas, said the king, help me hence, for I dread me I have tarried over long. Then Sir Bedivere took the king upon his back, and so went with him to that water's side. And when they were at the water's side, even fast by the bank floated a little barge with many fair ladies in it. And among them all was a queen, and all they had black hoods, and all they wept and shrieked when they saw King Arthur. Now put...
Okay, so finally, King Arthur tells him, he's like, I'm staying alive just long enough for you to go do this. I can't believe you would be so greedy to keep my sword and not go do what I'm asking you. You're my last knight. You're supposed to be my most honorable one. So he lays a little guilt trip on it. So Bedivere goes and he throws the sword in the water, and what happens? A hand comes out. An arm comes out of the water and grabs it, and then brings it back down into the water. And then he takes him to the shore. He takes King Arthur to the shore, and what shows up? A barge full of very beautiful ladies and a queen. And they're all crying, and they're very sad that Arthur is dead. But we haven't been told who they are.
Me into that barge, said the king. And so he did softly. And there received him 3 ladies with great mourning, and so they set them down. And in one of their laps King Arthur laid his head. And then the queen said, Ah, my dear brother, why have you tarried so long from me? Alas, this wound on your head hath caught overmuch cold. And anon they rode fromward the land, and Sir Bedivere beheld all, though ladies go froward him. Then Sir Bedivere cried and said, Ah, my lord Arthur, what shall become of me? Now ye go from me, and leave me here alone among mine enemies. Comfort thyself, said the king, and do as well as thou mayest, for in me is no trust for to trust in. For I must into the vale of Avalon to heal me of my grievous wound. And if thou hear never more of me, pray for my soul. But ever the queen and ladies wept and shrieked that it was pity to hear. And as soon as Sir Bedivere had lost sight of the barge, he wept and wailed, and so took the forest and went all that night. And in the morning he was ware, betwixt 2 bare woods, of a chapel and an hermitage. Then was Sir Bedivere glad, and thither he went. And when he came into the chapel, he saw where lay an hermit grovelling on all fours. Close thereby a tomb was new dug. When the hermit saw Sir Bedivere, he knew him well, for he was but little tofore Bishop of Canterbury, that Sir Mordred put to flight.
So Arthur says, you have to let me go on the barge. It's the only way to heal my wound. And the ladies, the 3 ladies take him and they go. What does Bedivere say to him?
What am I gonna do now?
What am I going to do now? My whole life has revolved around serving my king. What am I to do now? So he goes into the forest and he comes upon a chapel and a hermitage. Do any of you guys know what that is?
Kind of someone away from public.
Right, a chapel is a church and a freshly dug tomb is there, correct?
Sirs, said Sir Bedivere, what man is there here interred that you pray so fast for? Fair son, said the hermit, I wot not verily but by guessing, but this same night, at midnight, here came a number of ladies and brought here a dead corpse and prayed me to inter him. And here they offered 100 tapers and gave me 1,000 gold coins. Alas, said Sir Bedivere, that was my lord King Arthur, which lieth here buried in this chapel. Then Sir Bedivere swooned, and when he awoke, he prayed the hermit that he might abide with him still, there to live with fasting and prayers. For from hence will I never go, said Sir Bedivere, by my will, but all the days of my life here to pray for my lord Arthur. Sir, ye are welcome to me, said the hermit.
Stay focused,
For I
please.
know you better than ye think that I do. For ye are Sir Bedivere the Bold, and the full noble Duke Sir Lucan the butler was your brother. Then Sir Bedivere told the hermit all as you have heard tofore, and so he stayed with the hermit that was beforehand Bishop of Canterbury. And there Sir Bedivere put upon him poor clothes, and served the hermit full lowly in fasting and in prayers. Thus of Arthur I find no more written in books that been authorized, neither more of the very certainty of his death heard I nor read. But thus was he led away in a ship wherein were 3 queens, that one was King Arthur's sister, Queen Morgan le Fay, the other was the Queen of North Gallis, and the third was the Queen of the Wastelands. Now more of the death of King Arthur could I never find, but that these ladies brought him to his grave, and such one was interred there which the hermit bare witness that was once Bishop of Canterbury. But yet the hermit knew not in certain that he was verily the body of King Arthur. For this tale Sir Bedivere, a knight of the Table Round, made it to be written. Yet some men say in many parts of England that King Arthur is not dead.
Uh-oh. Thanks, guys. There you go. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.